Veiled Screen, Woven Dream by the Palace of Tears. I've stared at it, I've listened to it, here's what I think. Bats, please. Welcome to ByCandlelight, beaming goth, dark wave and post-punk straight into your brain, and before you know it, I'll be gone. I don't blow up, the episode just ends. This episode I'm reviewing the latest release by the Palace of Tears, Veiled Screen, Woven Dream. I will hold up my hands, that's just one hand. I will hold up my hands and say that I had not heard of this band before. So a big thank you to Adam Canvena, hope I've pronounced that right, who recommended this to me in a comment. This episode would not exist if it wasn't for you. Before I get into it, could we just take a moment to admire that beautiful cover? If I'd have seen this out in the wild, my brain would have screamed symphonic metal, such is the aesthetic. But what a beautiful sleeve this is. The Palace of Tears are a duo from New Orleans, and according to the band, they chose their name after watching the remake of Suspiria. The Palace of Tears is a chapter in that film. The duo have been releasing music since 2020, and this looks to be their sophomore album. At just 7 tracks, this may look like an EP from a distance, but swoop on in and you'll notice that most of the tracks are over the 6-minute mark. Generally, this album has a cavernous feel to it, with reverb that doesn't seem to want to end. The band also has a distinctive vocalist in LV Darkling. That is a classic name. On every track here, she mixes sorrow, pain and grief with a sense of summoning a greater power. Whilst it took me a little while to get used to her vocals, it did remind me of the first time I heard Lisa Gerrard's voice. That sombre, powerful, cavernous voice. So this is not an easy listen, but it was never intended to be. Providing everything music in this cavern, or should I say coven, is multi-instrumentalist Eric R. Scheid. And Eric just creates this world for LV to exist in. In this world, she weaves her powerful magic that provides strength and healing in the face of personal loss and grief that is at the very core of this album. The atmosphere is perfectly set by opener Black Obsidian, Beyond Oblivion. The obsidian is a protective stone known for its healing properties and its ability to transform negative energies. So the fact that it's referenced in this track is apt considering the subject matter. While it begins quite ominously, there is majestic power at work here. While the wall-to-wall synths provide the backdrop, LV's voice cuts dramatically through. Second track, An Echo in Time, packs in more synth soundscapes, but also features drums that drive the music forward. If I've heard it correctly, LV's layered vocals sound quite discordant at times. I'm assuming that this is intentional and is there to create a fitting atmosphere of unease. Nothing can prepare you for the deeply emotional and powerful The Embers of Your Being Glow Still. With lines such as Born Anew from these sacred cinders, Arise and Reawaken, this feels like the album's spiritual heart, and it's brilliant. Lair of the Undying may bring in these fuzzy guitars, but LV's voice still shines out like a beacon. So yeah, there is beauty in sorrow, and here you will find it. Take flight and embrace the night are the words that feel like they soar across the sky in the final minute of this track. This is no order, this is an observation or an expected outcome born out of unimaginable grief. The healing power here is almost tangible, and it stays with you long after the track has ended. Sonically, the instrumentation on the title track feels more like a match for LV's voice. With shades of Lycia, this wall of sound provides a beautiful balance between the music and vocals. That's not to say that the mixing or production is incorrect on the rest of the album. Most tracks need LV's voice up front and centre stage. Here, she can allow herself to bathe in this chasm of sound. The Serpent Bearer brings these passages of violin over synth washes and a drum loop. Feeling very much like an epilogue to an emotional story, its final sustained note is timed just right. It's quite hard to explain, but if the note was any shorter, it would almost feel disrespectful, but any longer, and it would upstage the rest of the album. All in all, the Palace of Tears have crafted a highly emotional and personal album about grief and loss. But within that grief is spirituality and healing. LV's voice has the ability to convey that grief and loss, but also the power to summon healing forces. Adding to all of that, Eric's breathtaking soundscapes, I believe you have an album that will speak to a lot of people. From me, this album gets a strong 7. There are vinyl and CD copies still available, but in very limited quantities. I know that the band crowdfunded the recording and production costs, so if you can, please support them. I will post a link in the usual place. Until next time, see you later.